Hey there, fourth grade. Gonna totally shift. You want to make a new page in your notebook for like a whole new unit. We're gonna switch to a unit on geometry. Totally different topic. So kind of fun. It'll be neat to get out of our usual kind of numbery, mathy mode and work on some geometry. And so our first lesson on geometry is going to be about points, lines, line segments, and rays. So if you want to label that, you want to do a title page, and then maybe this will be the first lesson day. It's all about vocab today, just making sure you know some words. You can do that. And when you're all set, unpause, and I need your total concentration until we get to the we-dos. All right, let me bring up some familiar things to you that I'm going to connect to later in the lesson. So first is the number line. We think of it being more about numbers and less about lines. But if you notice in my title, lines are going to be one of the things we study today. So the number line, what I really want to bring your attention to is that the number line, we always put these arrows on the end of it, right? Like it goes on and on and on in both directions. So that kind of, the arrows are to tell you, even if you go, you only show this on the number line, obviously it keeps going forever to 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, forever and ever. So the arrows, lines, as you're going to see, lines have arrows on the end to kind of show you that they keep going even past what you see. Angles, we've been talking about angles a lot lately, and you'll notice we usually draw angles like this. We kind of draw a point, 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 and then we draw what's called a ray from the vertex through the other point, and we kind of make our angles like this. Whoop, missed. And so I want to remind you of that because we're going to be talking about points and rays today. And also 2D shapes, you've learned in past grades about things like rectangles, probably trapezoids, maybe parallelograms, I'm not sure which. But anyway, any kind of two-dimensional shape, I'm going to be bringing some things up about those as well today. So just want to remind you of some things you already know. All right, so 4 vocabulary words I want you to get comfortable with today. Points, lines, line segments, and rays. So let me start by just telling you what these are before I make anything out of them. Lines, line segments, and rays. So let's start with line segments. Line segments are things like this, like on a triangle, let's say. Each side here would be a line segment. It goes from here to here. This is a line segment. It's straight, and it has an end on both sides. Those are called line segments. Sometimes you see them just by themselves. That's a line segment as well. And it has points on both ends. You don't always draw them. And I know it's probably weird to hear me saying point. Point is okay to say in this context. Doesn't mean, when you talk about a decimal, it's totally inappropriate to call that a point. But here it's fine. You'll notice like when I drew my triangle, this is still a line segment. Even though I didn't draw the points, they're there. Sometimes we don't always draw them, but they just kind of, the points let us know where to end it. So line segments have an end on both sides. Okay? Let's talk about lines next. Erase. I'll just draw a basic one up here so you can remember what it is. So a line segment, we usually draw like this. Or like this. It doesn't have to have the points on it. Points we've already talked about too. That's a point. Lines, as I showed you on the number line back in the Connect, lines don't have an end. They go on and on and on and on in both directions. We usually draw them like this, and the arrows show that they keep going. Where you really need them is when you run out of space. It's like they literally never end. They're straight, but they go on and on and on and on and on in both directions forever and ever and ever and ever and ever. That's a line. And these are there to tell you that they go. In order to draw, again, you notice there's no points drawn on here. But you do need points to draw a line. They have to have at least 2. Like if I tell you to draw a line through this point, you know, you could draw like one like, whoop, missed again. You could draw one like there. I missed again. I'm just leaving it. I'll just make my point bigger. Or I could, you know, I could have drawn this line through it, or this line. 1 point is not enough points for you to know how to draw a line. In order to really draw a line, you need 2. Because if I give you this one and this one, then I have no chance of hitting both of these. Then you can draw your line through both points and you know where to draw it. There's only one possibility. So even though we don't draw them, we think about lines having at least 2 points on them. You know, when we do the number line, it has a lot of points on it. You know, 0, 1, 2, and so on. But that's the biggie. Lines go on and on and on forever in both directions. Rays are most familiar to you from angles. These are both rays. So rays go on and on and on and on in one direction. So we usually draw a ray like that or like that. Lines we draw like that, or we put 2 points on them. So rays you most often see in an angle, they have an end on one side, but they go on and on forever on the other side. So, you know, really this thing goes until I run out of room and keeps going forever and ever. So that's 2 different rays. That's a ray, and that's a ray. And again, you need 2 points to make a ray. If I just give you 1, you know, you don't know where to go. If I just give you 1, you know, do I mean that ray? Do I mean that ray? Do I mean that ray? There. So that's what it is. Most often you'll see a line. Whoop, I'm making all kind of mistakes here. Boom, 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 boom. Most often you'll see line segments used to draw shapes. Most often you'll see rays used to draw angles, and lines you don't see as much. You can use, it's kind of fun, you can use lines to draw a shape. You know, I could draw a triangle like with lines. It's kind of fun. You know, like that. The lines keep going, but I do have that triangle. But you don't usually do it. Usually you draw geometric shapes with those. All right? All right, open your notes. Let's do all that again, but let's make sure you get a handle on it. So let's start with what they look like kind of traditionally. Points. Line, not ling segments, line segments. Lines. And rays. Let's start with their quick drawings. So points look like this. Line segments either look like this or like this. Sometimes we draw the points, sometimes we don't. Lines, we either draw like this, or again, sometimes we put 2 points on them to show that they have those 2 points on them. And rays either look like this or like this. Actually, even sometimes they just draw the first one. Sometimes you'll see that even on a ray. So that's kind of what they look like in no situation, really. Line segments, most often used to draw 2D shapes. That's where you usually see them. So like if I were to draw this square or this square, like that, that's 4 line segments and 4 points. All right, that's how I would make square. I can draw the points or not. they're there even if you don't draw them because they're where the line segment ends. All right? Rays, let's skip over to rays. Rays are most often used to draw angles. So you'll either see it kind of like that or like that. We've been drawing rays in class. Oops. We draw angles. So rays are most often used to draw angles. Lines we don't really use to draw anything. Lines are usually stand alone in our study of geometry. But like I said before, it's possible like to draw an angle with two lines. You could do that. And you actually end up with 4 different angles, right? You end up with one there. You end up with one there. We could measure all 4 of these angles. But most of the time we don't do that. Most of the time, most of the time lines are just out there by themselves. All right, so that's kind of what those 4 vocabulary words are and how they work. We'll spend plenty of time advancing in this before, but what I want you to come away with today is just an understanding of what those 4 words mean and where you might see them typically. All right, so once you feel like you've got those written down and you have a good handle on them, you're all set. See you tomorrow.